Hi. As part of my job, I'm a frequent speaker at customer meetings, seminars and conferences. And what happens is that I see public speakers often make the same mistakes when they are doing presentations. So what I want to share with you today are the 7 sins of the speaker that I see often being made by these public presenters. So let me start with the first sin, which is about speakers speaking for too long. The Cuban leader Fidel Castro once addressed the Communist Party Congress in Havana with a speech which took 7 hours and 10 minutes. Now this is extremely long, but this is a common mistake often made is where people tend to talk too much and try to tell everything they know about one single topic. So what I'm going to introduce to you now is what is called Guy Kawasaki's 10-20-30 rule. Guy Kawasaki is a former Apple employee, and he once formulated this 10-20-30 rule, which says that a good presentation should contain 10 slides, should take about 20 minutes, and to be readable from the back of the room, that the fonts you use on your slide should be about 30 points large. The second sin is about putting too much detail in what you tell to your audience. Recently, I went buying a new wristwatch, and when I was in the shop, the jeweler tried to convince me of his product by telling me that the oscillator in a quartz clock, it's functioning actually as a small tuning fork, which oscillates at a frequency of 30,768 Hertz. Now, this might be interesting information, but I was only in the shop for buying a watch. So this was really no argument to convince me about the superiority of his product or whatever. So here's a second rule. Don't put all detail, don't tell everything you know in one single presentation. Here's my advice, stick to the KISS principle. KISS stands for keep it short and simple. There's another abbreviation which says keep it simple, stupid. The meaning is the same. Don't make your presentations too long. Don't put too much detail in it. Keep them short, sweet and simple. Next sin is about you deliver your message. I'm a big fan of storytelling because if you do a presentation, people won't remember all the facts and the figures you are providing them. The only thing they will remember the next day after your presentation is how you actually made them feel. The principles of storytelling were already introduced in the 4th century BC by the Greek philosopher Aristotle. And he actually said that all good presentations or all good stories or all good speeches were relying on 3 basic components, which were in Greek ethos, pathos and logos. The first one, ethos, you can hear the word ethics in it, is about your credibility, your trustworthiness to the audience. A way to increase your trustworthiness is the way you dress, the stance you take, the words you are using, how you are addressing your audience, the people in the room. The second one is about pathos, and pathos is about building an emotional liaison with the people in the room. If you tell stories, if you talk about yourself, how you feel about the topic you are telling, some expertise, some experience, this really gives the audience the feeling that you're one of them. This is the pathos. And then the third one is logos. And in logos you hear the English word logic. Logos is about rational argumentation. It's about the facts and the figures. It's about illustrating by numbers, by references, what you are actually speaking about. If you're visiting an e-commerce site on the internet, you often see these buttons, buy now or click here to put this in your shopping cart. This is actually a means for creating a conversion funnel through which your customers or your audience enter into a next stage from listener to buyer. Now, very often I see public speakers ending their presentation with "Thank you for listening," or "That's all, folks." Now, that's not enough, because people will go home with the feeling, okay, this was a nice presentation, but so what? So it's very important that you finish or that you close your presentation in a way that people will take something home, something to remember, something to do. A good way to remember how you can end your presentation is the abbreviation MAS. M stands for memorable. Make sure that you end with something, an anecdote, a quote, or something which is surprising people even at the end of the presentation, something they will remember the next day. The A stands for action. Never end your presentation without a call to action. Tell the people what you want them to take home with them, what you want them expect them to do, invite them for a follow-up meeting or whatever, but ask them something or tell them what kind of action they should take. And then the third letter is the S, which stands for summarize. It's always good to finish your presentation with just an overview of the key topics or the key messages you have been given during the past 20 or 30 minutes. Even worse than sending your audience home without a clear call to action is sending them home with a feeling, what has this guy been talking about for the past 30 minutes or for the past hour? So always be concise and be clear in the messages you are giving in your presentation. And a very good way to build up your message structure is to create a message house. A message house is kind of a graphic structure or graphic representation that has a roof. And in the roof you are putting the overarching statement. What is the big message? What do you want your audience to take home with it? It may be the vision of your company. It may be the fact that you're introducing a new product. It may be something completely different, but there is one key thing you want you to tell to your audience. And then this key message, you are supporting it by a number of key messages. And it's a good rule, never try to say 2 is often too little, 4 is too much. So if you're building a message house, try to stick your presentation to 3 key messages. Probably one about the market opportunity, another one about the technology you are using, and a third one about what does it mean for the end users, what is your value proposition. So 1 roof, 3 supporting pillars, and then, like every stable house, a message house has also a foundation. And this foundation is actually a set of facts and figures, use cases, references. Remember the ethos, pathos, logos. Remember the logos part, where you are actually supporting your statements by some hard facts to make it credible. In the meantime, we are already moving to the 6th sin, and the 6th sin is about bad taste. A good presentation is like a tasty dish. If you're in the kitchen and you're cooking, it's not only about the ingredients and it's not only about the way you're cooking your food, it's also about the way you are presenting the food. How are the visuals, the slides, how do they look? What are you showing to your audience? And okay, I can talk hours for this, but keep it clean, keep it consistent, keep it simple. And I'm just going to show you 2 examples of things you should absolutely avoid. let's talk about slide elements first. Slide element is a word you probably never heard before, but it's a kind of combination of slides and documents. Very often people tend to use PowerPoint or another presentation program to just write big documents and to document everything they want to say. This is something to avoid. PowerPoint or Keynote or Prezi are presentation software packages. So use them for presenting them. Make your slides attractive for the audience. Don't put them full of words, don't put them full of numbers. Remember the 10, 20, 30 rules. 30-point font size, that it's clear and readable also for the people sitting at the end of the room. And then I also want to talk a bit about the graphics you are using. Please avoid using boring clip art which doesn't add anything to the content of your presentation. One very well-known example is the use of screen beans. They were introduced, I think it's in PowerPoint 2003, and which were these abstract figures with people talking and with people fighting and with people shaking hands. No, this is not clip art, I call it crap art. So this doesn't add any value to your presentation, so it's better to leave them out than to leave them in. You may have prepared the most beautiful slides and still end up in a situation where you see that the people listening to you are not interested in what you're telling. I remember a personal example where I prepared a beautiful technical presentation with all details about the new product, and the people in the room didn't seem to be very interested. Why? Because these were financial guys, these were the purchasing people, and they even didn't understand the technical content. They were only interested in what was the price point of the new product that I was presenting to them. So please, if you're going to deliver a presentation, make sure that you know in advance what kind of people will be in the room, what they are interested in, what are their needs, and what you should tell them. As your time is limited to 20 to 30 minutes, don't overload them with unnecessary or meaningless information, but try to address their real needs. Again, there are some tools you can use for trying to determine what are the needs or what are the characters of the people in the audience. And one of these tools is what I call a power quadrant. What you're actually going to do is a mapping of the people in the room based on two axes. The x-axis is the decision power. In the example I've just given, the decision power was not with the technical people, but was with the financial people. And the other axis, the y-axis, is about the expertise of the people in the room, the authority. Because in this same meeting there was also a technical guy who understood all the details of what I was presenting, but who had no decision power at all. So if you build such a kind of power quadrant and you manage to map the key decision makers and the key technical experts in the room, you're very well set for delivering a presentation that will resonate with the people who are listening to you. And applying my own advice, as I just told you, every presentation should end with a call to action. So here is my call to action. I've just given you 7 tips for bringing or for delivering a better presentation, what to avoid, what are the sins of the speaker. So here's my call to action. Please apply these 7 tips and tricks to make your next presentation better than if you wouldn't have used them. And to end with some shameless self-promotion, if you're interested in getting some more material on it, I have a weekly blog on which I'm writing about presentation techniques, about the art of storytelling, about all the things I just talked about in this short video. So I invite you to visit my weekly blog posts on b2bstorytelling.wordpress.com, and there you will find more than 120 articles and a few ebooks describing how you can deliver a better presentation and shine in front of your audience.